YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. Everybody guys, week 2 of the P4G. The Minnesota Vikavolts are taking on the Camden Ursarings and Coach Chance. We are ready to rock and roll for our second week of matches here after a nice W over Kyle A and the Miami Dawn fans behind Prime Arena doing some serious wall breaking. Latias cleaning up at the end there with a nice choice scarf. If you haven't seen that match yet, I highly recommend it. It was a pretty cool way to start our season, of course, and it is time for week 2. We've got a really interesting match against Chance. He had a really tough week 1. I believe he lost like 5-0, forgot the Mega Bracelet or whatever for his Charizard, and things just didn't go his way. But he's got a pretty scary team, and we're gonna have to do our best to try to break through his walls and keep his offensive threats at bay. I'm bringing some funky stuff this week, and I hope you guys will like it. I do have some relatively bad news for all my fans out there. The bad news is Ditto will no longer be on the team starting next week. We will be dropping Ditto and picking up Beware as a tier 4 pick. Trust me, I love me some Ditto, I really do, but I wanted the fighting type Pokemon, and I realized that a fighting type would be very, very helpful on our team, and I really like Beware because of its bulk. I feel like Beware paired with Umbreon is really cool, and you know, pair with Bronzong and stuff like that. Like, obviously a fighting weakness isn't nicely to be added, but it's got such great physical bulk and it hits incredibly hard, and we don't have a fighting type, so Ditto, unfortunately, goodbye, but we'll be adding Beware. But this week we do have Ditto, so that'll be for next week. Anyway, looking at his team, we see the Starmie, very fast Pokemon, 115 base speed, of course, rapid spinning options, and just really, really good coverage options. It's one of his Z-move users. He's got the Buzzwole, which is one of the Ultra Beasts, incredible HP, attack, and defense stat. It's speed and its special defense leaves a little bit to be desired, so we want to try to hit it from the special side. He's got a Jolteon, which is probably one of the bigger threats he has on his team, in my opinion. Speed ties with Tapu Koko obviously can be really tricky to deal with if he tries to kind of work against our Tapu Koko's electric terrain and use Jolteon effectively. I think he's probably going to bring Jolteon, and I think it's going to be really difficult for us to deal with. So if there's one Pokemon I'm really, really worried about, it is Jolteon, believe it or not, because I had 2 versions of this team, and I'm bringing kind of the final version of the team, and my responses to Jolteon are lessened, but my responses to other stuff are heightened, so I kind of like am making some sacrifices. So I know I'm a little weak to Jolteon this week. He's got the Porygon 2, of course, which is just an incredibly bulky normal type Pokemon with Eviolite. Getting a knockoff on that thing is going to be really important. We're just knocking it out with something in general. Very tough. He's got the Mega Charizard X, which should always be a force to be reckoned with. Mega Char can just sweep through teams after a Dragon Dance. So you have to be really, really cautious around that. So you have to dedicate multiple things to kind of handle that and try to get up hazards. He's got 2 hazard removers, one of which is Regirock, of course, very bulky rock type Pokemon. And Celebi, of course, base 100 across the board with, you know, get stealth rocks, but most of the time you'll see it with different passing sets or kind of support type sets. It can be offensive as well, but I think you usually see it defensively. He's got a Mandibuzz, which is another really bulky Pokemon. So this guy's got some serious bulk on his team. It gives him a hazard removing option to kind of go along Starmie. Weezing, just a bulky, physically defensive wall with Levitate. He's got Mr. Mime, which is a fairy type, relatively fast with 90 base speed. Fairy Psyche type Pokemon, can hit kind of hard, but not really too scary of a Pokemon for our team. It can be annoying, but I'm not too worried about it. And then Ambipom, which is of course just a really fast lead fake out Pokemon with like knockoff and things like that. So in terms of what I'm expecting to bring, I think we're gonna see the Charizard, the Jolteon. I think both of those, I think Buzzwole, Starmie, Celebi, those are all relatively likely. Mandibuzz could come as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he brought Mandibuzz because it matches up decently against a couple of our Pokemon, but he's got some really tough decisions to make because while he can check some things, some other Pokemon really destroy him, so he's got some tough decisions to make in terms of what he's going to be bringing. So let's kind of jump into what we're bringing and why we're bringing it. I'll break it down one at a time as norm. So the first thing we're bringing is going to be Blackhawk. Making its debut for the Vikavolts this season is our Tapu Koko, our first round pick this season, and I didn't bring it last week because I didn't like the matchup with Alolan Marowak and things like that, but Tapu Koko looks relatively good this match. It obviously roasts Starmie. It can beat the Buzzwole. I have Thunderbolt, U-Turn, Nature's Madness, and Brave Bird. Max special attack, max speed basically, so I probably should have played with the EVs a little bit more on it, but I like the max special attack because it does hit really, really hard. Nature's Madness with the Tapinium Z. Kind of weird, you might be like, wait, no one runs that, that's a bad idea, but Porygon 2 is a really big threat, and one of the cool things is Nature's Madness Tapu Z does 75% to a Pokemon, so we actually hit the Porygon all the way down to 25%, and Thunderbolt from that range 100% of the time knocks out Porygon 2 in electric terrain. So kind of weird, like I said, it's a little bit of a strange set. You might be a little surprised to see me running Tapunium Z, you know, but it can be really effective to break down walls like Porygon 2, for example, or even Regirock, Pokemon that don't really get a ton of recovery. Otherwise, we Thunderbolt everything else. Thunderbolt into Buzzwole unless he's AV. Brave Bird does work there. You turn out on things like Jolteon and Celebi. Pretty straightforward stuff there, so really nice. Obviously, U-turn because that Jolteon most likely has Volt Absorb, which is kind of important to note, so keep that in mind for later in our prep here, but that's kind of what I was thinking there. And then otherwise, like I said, Thunderbolt for most other things. The next Pokemon we're bringing is, did so well last week, had to bring it back. We're bringing the Primarina this time. Just minimal speed this time on Primarina though, just like 28 speed, mostly into the HP, so we can take potentially 2 Flare Blitzes from the Charizard. Also ensure we live a Thunder Punch from Charizard, but also this thing is just a giant wall breaker. Like, again, same as last week, my opponent really doesn't have great switch-ins to this thing. Moonblast just eats his team alive. You can see he doesn't have a single Moonblast resist aside from Weezing, which probably gets 2-shot by it. You know, Porygon can switch in, but obviously can't do ton back, so I can kind of just fire away Moonblast, especially if rocks are up, and a little bit of chip damage is there. So just a great wall breaker in general, and just really, like I said, puts in a lot of work and can take a hit from like a Starmie and one-shot it back. It can take hits from dual stab on Buzzwole, obviously resisting the fighting and the fighting and the bug type moves with its fairy typing, which is really nice. And again, it can take 1 hit from the Charizard. And also it's a great switch into Mandibuzz. Like, he can knock off, but otherwise, like, he really can't do too much to us. So I really like Primarina this week. The next Pokemon is going to be our Bronzong. We are bringing a very defensive Bronzong, as you'll most likely see, with 244 HP, 132 defense, and 132 special defense. This allows us to make sure we can live 2 Life Orb Hydro Pumps from Timid Starmie. We can also live some Shadow Balls from the Jolteon. We take on the Charizard relatively well. Not great, but okay. We completely wall the Weezing, and we can take on the Celebi pretty well as well, unless he's running like Shadow Ball. Stealth Rock, Shadow Ball, Psychic, and Toxic. Stealth Rock, very important, obviously, to weaken down Charizard, most importantly, but also weaken some of his other Pokemon. Shadow Ball for Celebi and Starmie, and Psychic for the Weezing. Toxic is there for P2 and Mandibuzz as one of our other responses to Porygon 2. I don't need Levitate this week. While he could have Earthquake on a few Pokemon, I like the Heat Proof a little bit more. Heat Proof helps us against like HP Fire Starmie if you were to bring that, but most importantly, it helps us if we get burned by Weezing and Flamethrower on Weezing trying to catch our Bronzong off guard, and it also reduces the super effective damage from Charizard, which is also pretty nice. So a couple cool things there. The next Pokemon we're going to be bringing is our Honeydew here, which did really well last week. Honeydew, another way for us to kind of deal with Porygon this week if we needed kind of an option for it. Psychic, Dragon Pulse, Trick, and Thunderbolt. The Choice Scarf ensures that +1 Charizard can't sweep us because we'll be able to one-shot it with Dragon Pulse since we're faster. This also helps me. This also helps me against Scarf Buzzwole if he tries to bring that, or like Scarf Celebi or something like that. We'll be able to outpace those Pokemon, be able to fire off Dragon Pulses. But really, it's there to primarily check the Charizard. And it also outspeeds Jolteon, which is nice. We could potentially get some surprise damage there on the Jolteon. If he goes for like a Shadow Ball and doesn't one-shot us, we can like come in, he thinks he's faster than us, then we knock him out with the Dragon Pulse. That could be really good. You know, so I kind of like that. And the trick is there. If we trick a Choice Scarf over to Porygon, that could be really debilitating for that Pokemon. Or really a lot of Pokemon, like Mandibuzz as well. Tricking a Choice Scarf to Mandibuzz would be really effective. Like both Porygon and Mandibuzz are his primary switch-ins to Latias most likely, and tricking a Choice Scarf to them would be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, what does he switch into a Draco on his team besides Porygon and Mandibuzz? So getting the trick off could be really, really cool. And the next Pokemon we're going to be bringing, this is kind of the, like I said, the 2 versions. We're actually bringing Mystique. I originally had Diggersby, and Diggersby would respond to Jolteon relatively well, being a normal type, and being a ground type rather, but excuse me, I didn't want to run Banded Diggersby because I didn't think it was going to be that good, and I was trying to run like a Swords Dance variant, but I was looking at his team and I was like trying to figure out how I set up with Swords Dance with Diggersby, and there really wasn't a lot of opportunities to set up. I can't set up on Starmie, I can't set up on Buzzwole. I can set up on P2, but if it has Ice Beam, it does like 60% to us, so it's not really that effective. There just wasn't a lot of opportunities for me to set up with Diggersby, so I decided to go with Mystique. Mystique is really cool this match because it stops Charizard from sweeping 100%, and we can counter sweep, which is really, really cool. It also gives us an opportunity to scout out his sets, get some intel on what he's running. We do have Hidden Power Ground on this thing, so if he's got Hidden Power on his Jolteon, we'll have Hidden Power Ground to hit it back super effectively. And as I mentioned earlier, Jolteon typically runs runs Volt Absorb, which means that Mystique can transform into Jolteon, get its Volt Absorb, and be immune to its Electric type moves. So while it's not quite as true immunity as I would like, it still does work. So I like that. But again, Charizard really can't do anything to us. The only thing he could do is substitute to block our transform. But if Charizard tries to set up to +1, and he does successfully do that, like, we counter sweep, because he doesn't really have much responses for his own Charizard firing back attacks. So that's why I really like Mystique this week. And it also gives me, like I said, a lot of intel on his sets. A lot of Pokemon can't beat themselves. So like Buzzwole probably, Buzzwole probably can't beat itself. Jolteon can Shadow Ball, but he's got to make a prediction. You know, P2, I could just bulk in front of P2 and find out it's set. It's just a useful Pokemon this week. So I think, unfortunately, it'll be the only week we bring it because, like I said, I dropped it for Beware, but it'll be fun to use this week either way. And then, last but not least, didn't get any action last week. We brought it, but didn't even get sent into battle. It's Beedrill, baby. Our Mega Beedrill. U-turn, Drill Run, Knockoff, Aerial Ace. Don't even need Poison Jab this week. U-turn destroys Celebi. Knockoff is there for Porygon, obviously. Drill Run for Charizard. And Aerial Ace for Buzzwole. U-turn on everything else. You know, we can hit the Regirock, but most of the time we're just going to U-turn out. So this, with Tapu Koko, gives us momentum. We've got, you know, Ditto there as well. So a couple really cool Pokemon this week, which will hopefully result in us picking up a W. So that's our strategy, guys. Really, gotta get those rocks up early to kind of reduce the threat of Charizard, but, you know, Ditto can really protect us there, and I think Ditto's gonna be clutch this match. I really like this matchup for Ditto. I really like the ability to scout out his sets and kind of get some intel on what he's bringing. And again, I could have easily brought Diggersby, but it just didn't fit. Serena didn't really make a lot of sense, in my opinion, with him having the Buzzwole and the Charizard. I didn't really like Serena this match. Umbreon was okay, but I felt like it wasn't gonna be able to wall the Buzzwole by any means, and it can't beat Charizard, but that's not a foul play. And then Moltres didn't really fit, because Moltres actually wouldn't have been terrible. Moltres could have been kind of cool, but, and then Alolan Golem didn't really fit. So that's kind of the squad there. So anyway, I hope you guys are hyped for the match tomorrow. Hit that like button if you enjoyed our pre-game team builder here. Oh my goodness, why do I yawn so much, man? It's a struggle. I usually make it through some team builders without. I think it's because I talk so fast, but that's that, guys. I'm gonna get ready for the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you again for watching. My name is Dan. I'll go by aDrive, and I'm gonna catch you guys next time. Peace.